Hi, it is time to read more Dinosaurs Before Dark. So let's see here. Let's think about who's in this book. Jack and Annie, their brother and sister. And do you remember what happened? There was a magic treehouse. That's right. All of a sudden, there was a magic treehouse, and they went into the magic treehouse. Do you remember what was all over the magic treehouse? Books, that's right. And they had books about different subjects. And the book that Jack started reading was about dinosaurs. That's right. So let's see where they are. The last that we were with Jack and Annie, they were outside with a pteranodon. And they were trying to figure out where exactly they were because they knew they weren't in their time that they had lived in or do live in, I should say. So this is chapter 5. It's Gold in the Grass. We don't have any pictures in this one. It's the words. Remember, in a chapter book, sometimes there aren't a lot of pictures. Let's see what happens. Go, go, said Jack. He threw his notebook into his pack and he pushed Annie toward the rope ladder. Bye, Henry, she said. Remember, they named the pteranodon Henry. Go, said Jack, and he gave her another push. Quit it, Annie said. But she started up the ladder, and Jack scrambled after her, so they're really moving fast. Jack and Annie tumbled into the treehouse. They were panting as they looked out the window at the dinosaur. It was standing on the hilltop eating flowers off of a tree. Oh, man, Jack said. We are definitely in a long time ago. The dinosaur looked like a huge rhinoceros with 3 horns instead of 1. It had 2 long horns above its eyes, and another big one grew out from its nose. It had a big shield like this thing behind its head. He had 3 horns. He was a triceratop, because triceratop means 3-horned. Does he eat people? Asked Annie. I'll look it up. Jack grabbed the dinosaur book, and he flipped the pages. There, he said, pointing to a picture, the triceratop, and he read the caption. So that's a little blurb that tells you about the picture. The triceratop lived in the late Cretaceous period. This plant-eating dinosaur weighed over 12,000 pounds. That's a lot. Jack slammed the book shut. Just plants, no meat. Good, said Annie. Let's go see him up close. Are you crazy? Said Jack. Don't you want to take notes about him? Asked Annie. We're probably the first people in the whole world to ever see a triceratop. Jack sighed. Annie was right. Okay, let's go, he said. Jack shoved the dinosaur book into his pack, and he slung his pack over his shoulder. Annie started down the ladder, and Jack followed her. Just promise you won't pet him, Jack said. I promise, said Annie. And promise you won't give him a kiss, said Jack. I promise that too, said Annie. Promise you won't talk to him, Annie? I promise, she said. Promise you won't. Jack, Annie said, don't worry. Annie and Jack stepped off the ladder. The pteranodon gave them a friendly look. Annie blew him a kiss. Be back soon, Henry. Remember, she named him Henry, just like their dog at home. Shh, said Jack, and he led the way slowly through the ferns. When Jack and Annie reached the bottom of the hill, they knelt behind a bush. Annie started to speak, but Jack quickly put his finger to his lips. Then he and Annie peeked out at the triceratop. The dinosaur was bigger than a truck, and he was eating the flowers off of a magnolia tree. Jack slipped his notebook out of his pack, and he wrote, Eats flowers. Annie nudged him. Jack ignored her and kept writing. He studied the triceratops again, and then he wrote, Eat slowly. Annie nudged him harder, and Jack looked at her. Annie pointed to herself, and she walked her fingers through the air, and then she pointed to the dinosaur, and she smiled. Is she teasing? Jack wondered. Annie waved at Jack, and Jack started to grab her. Annie wants to go see the dinosaur. She is so brave. She laughed and jumped away, and she fell into the grass in full view of the triceratop. Get back, whispered Jack. It was too late. The big dinosaur had spotted Annie. He gazed down at her from the hilltop he was standing on. Half of a magnolia flower was sticking out of his mouth. Oops, said Annie. He looks nice, Jack said. Nice? Watch out for his horns, Annie, said Jack. The Triceratops gazed calmly down at them, and then he turned and he went down the other side of the hill. Bye, said Annie. She turned back. See, Jack? Jack grunted, and he wrote in his notebook. Nice. Come on, let's look around some more, said Annie. There's a picture. As Jack started after Annie, he saw something glittering in the tall grass. Jack reached down and picked it up. It was a gold medallion. Has the letter M on it. A letter was engraved on the medallion, a fancy M. Oh, man. Someone was here before us, Jack said softly. I think we have time for one more chapter. Chapter 6, Dinosaur Valley. Annie, look at this, Jack called. Look what I found. Annie had gone to the top of the hill, and she was picking flowers from the magnolia tree. Annie, look, it's a medallion. But Annie wasn't paying attention to Jack. She was staring at something on the other side. Oh, wow, she said, clutching her magnolia flower, and she took off down the hill. Annie, come back, Jack shouted. But Annie had disappeared. Oh, brother, Jack said. He stuffed the gold medallion into his jeans pocket. Then Jack heard Annie shriek. Annie, he said, Annie. Jack heard another sound as well, and it was like a big tuba noise. Jack, come here quick, Annie said. Jack raced up the hill. When he got to the top, he gasped. The valley below was filled with nests, big nests made out of mud. The nests were filled with tiny dinosaurs. Annie was crouching next to one of the nests, and towering over her was a big duck-billed dinosaur. Don't panic and don't move, said Jack. And he stepped slowly down the hill. See the picture. The huge dinosaur was waving her arms and making a tuba sound. Jack stopped. He didn't want to get too close. Okay, move toward me slowly, he said. Annie started to stand up. Don't stand, crawl, said Jack, clutching her flower. Annie crawled towards Jack. And that's where we'll stop for tonight. All right, so tomorrow we're going to read another couple chapters in our book, Dinosaurs Before Dark. So much fun. I cannot wait to see what happens. I hope you have a really fun night tonight. I miss you and love you all.